fear what we don't understand. And just like you say, when you're in high school, when you're preparing to go to Form 3 or Form 2, because that has choose it at Form 2 level, you're told that it's very difficult, it's very complicated, you can't handle it, the physics is unbearable, the math is something that you won't be able to handle. So at that point, you definitely lose the confidence. And when you look back at the people who should be your role models, those that are older than you in those stages, and the level of discouragement, you're like, oh, okay, so this is something that I can't handle, it's so difficult, I can't do it. But it's the fear of unknown that is holding us back.
Okay.
So actually nothing is difficult, nothing is impossible, but it's just having the right attitude and you know, believing that you can do it.
Right, so it's more about the mindset.
It's more of the mindset.
It's not that science is harder than English.
If for people who've done science, they'll tell you that English is also hard. So I think it's just the mind, yeah, the mindset. When you believe that something is just so difficult that you can't do it, then it becomes impossible. But if you dive into it and you try to figure out things and you try to find out why, how things are working, nothing is impossible. Because even walking is hard.
But we do it anyway.
But we do it anyway. Kids do it. They walk every day. But the first few steps, you stand up, you fall, you stand up, you fall, and you feel like, okay, when I fall, I'll get hurt. So you tend to not want to do it, but actually when you gain the courage, you can actually do it.
Okay. Yeah. And looking at our culture or our society, how we view education matters, then languages, which is English, Kiswahili, the humanities, geography, probably history, theory, are majorly known to be the girl subjects. And then the sciences, the maths, the physics, the chemistry, the bio are known to be for guys. Yeah. So are you disputing that today?
Well, actually, that's the truth. As it is, as we stand now, that's the current situation in our schools. But like I said earlier, it's the fear of unknown. So you have the Form 3s and the Form 4s telling you it's so difficult. Oh, girls can't do this. You're a girl, you need to speak more efficiently in English and Kiswahili, and you're more comfortable. Girls can be good lawyers and they can be all these other fields, but you can't do physics, you can't do biology, chemistry is unbearable. So it's the discouragement, yet you haven't tested the waters.
Not even dared.
Yeah, so that's what's sort of holding the girls back.
Okay, and looking at our society, then for the girl child, majorly just growing up, even the nature of toys that girls play with. They play with dolls, and maybe there's a lot of makeup growing up. And for the boys, it's slightly different. Then their dads would always tag them along if they're going for a car repair, if they're going to the more technical activities, then the boy child was more involved in. Could you say that then this is where all this is coming from?
Well, somewhat you could say it stems from the beginning, because then we raise our children differently. We were all raised different. So a girl needs to be more pampered, needs to play with more friendlier toys. So you have this beautiful doll, and a little boy will get a complicated toy like a car. But again, I think we're also born and wired differently. For the boys, they're daring. It's like at that young age, they're more experimental and not really thinking much, because they'll jump high.
They really put their parents on their toes.
Yeah, so they're always running around. So somewhat you could say it's also inherent. It's how, you know, we are born. The boys are jumpy and they want to do these daring activities, and for the girls, it's sort of, oh, okay, so you want this doll. And we love it, actually. We love it. But when you look at it, even the dolls that we play with and the little cups and all these things are also creative, and they're built out of science. So as much as we play and we are more wired towards, much friendly toys.
Right.
And the boys are sort of, techie, because when the boys see this, they're like, oh, okay, so how does it work? What's the name? For the girls, we look at it and look, okay, so this looks a little bit complex. Is it hard? But generally, everything that we're doing is out of STEM, is out of the science.
Right.
When you're holding a cup to drink tea, the plastic that is in front of us, it stems out of chemistry and biology. So that is, I think, how life is, but it shouldn't determine what we do in the future.
Okay, so that is not to say that there's one subject that is better than another.
No.
They work together.
Yeah.
So then for most girls who are likely, if you say they like the friendlier things, then so when more girls are in the creative, so that means the languages, maybe the humanities. So does this mean then that most girls love that and they are unable to embrace the sciences? So what can we do then to change that?
Well, actually, it's not that the girls don't love the sciences or they don't love these things. Like I say, the boys, naturally, they're more curious. They're more rough. Yeah, so they're daring. For the girls, we are a little bit more cautious, and it's also coupled by our parents, so how they bring us up. So, oh, okay, you'll fall, then they hold you up. They go to the toy store and they'll tend to buy you the doll. For the boys, definitely they love the cars and they want to know how it works. So naturally, it's a lot easier for them to connect with this. But then, from my understanding, based on the kids that I've worked with, actually girls also love to know, to find out more. How are these cars working? So what happens if I remove this hand from the doll? Can I put it back? So all that is creative and curiosity. I think we're just creative in a different space and in a different way, but it all adds up to STEM, because STEM is all about creativity, science is all about creativity. Right. And when you look at even the careers, I wouldn't say that girls are more inclined to humanities by nature. No, all kids are curious, but we're just curious in a different way. Right. Yeah.
So does it have a lot to do with how it's nurtured then? Because if a child is curious, then it's not nurtured. So they'll probably lose passion in that direction.
It all stems down to nurturing. Unless you're thrown into a certain territory, you wouldn't understand it. If you've never been to Nairobi and people just tell you, oh, Nairobi is this big city, this is how it looks like, it's complicated, it's difficult, that's the narrative that you'll have. But when you come to Nairobi and you're like, okay, people are more friendlier, there are more opportunities, people are aggressive, guys can do this and that, then that's the reality. So it's more of nurturing and giving out more information and spaces for our children to tinker and to think through, experiment with these things, and then to learn their passion in it. Because when you look at STEM is broad, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So as much as it's linked, it also linked to the arts that people perceive to be a girl space. Communication, because if you are a scientist but you can't communicate, then there's an aspect that is also missing, because you can't create.
So they're all interrelated.
Exactly, yeah, because when you're getting into a space, you can be a very good innovator, but unless you're able to explain your innovation to people who can understand it, then how are you going to roll it out?
Right.
Yeah, so all the subjects are important. All the subjects are important.
Okay. And, for some years now, girls there has been movements and projects just to include more ladies, more girls into the STEM space. So what do you make so far of the efforts that have been made just to include girls into the sciences?
Well, actually, it's very commendable, because as much as we start early on with playing with more friendly toys, And we are naturally curious when you're growing up because you want to find out, okay, why does the sun come out in the morning? Why do we have moon in the evening? It's curiosity for everyone, for every child. But then that curiosity is sort of killed at a certain level when you're told, okay, so this, boys tend to do this more, girls tend to do this more. And so by that alone, it sort of distinguishes you and you want to be in your place as a lady and you say, okay, so this is my space, this is what I need to learn more. And then they tend to run away from the sciences. So like we said, nurturing is very important. So any organization, anyone who is promoting more of STEM for our children, whether they are girls or boys, I think it's the right direction to go. So we don't kill the natural curiosity, the finding out the why, because the why is what leads to great innovations. So unless we give our children spaces to be creative, to be innovative, to think beyond the current problems and solutions that we have, then we're not going in the right direction. So for the girls, it's definitely very important to give them that, you know, extra attention, extra understanding, explain this to them more because they understand as much as the boys do understand. But it's the narrative that has been created to them that, okay, this is a more male-dominated field, so you shouldn't go too far into it, but anyone can do it.
So in short, no human is limited.
No human is limited.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and now let's talk about STEM tricks. Where did it all begin and why STEM tricks?
Okay, so it started off in 2017. Initially, I was employed by a Danish company that brought in the robotics equipment, the learning resources to schools. So we pioneered that in 2015. In 2016, we went to Dubai and later on in Denmark for robotics training. So that's when I learned fully how to implement robotics in education. I was working for a Danish company that had brought in the educational resources in East Africa, and I was the champion for that. So we worked with different schools to help them understand the concept, that is having gone through training in Denmark for the same.
Right.
So in 2017, unfortunately, they had to leave. They had to go back to Denmark, and that's when I decided to, you know, just continue with what I was doing. So I registered STEMtrix as a company and just continued with the schools.
So even before that, sorry to backtrack you, but were you interested in the sciences? What was your high school like?
Yeah. So yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I got to high school, definitely you're so curious because you want to learn, and my aim was to go to university, and I think I had University of Nairobi in my mind as the best university in Kenya, and that was just my goal and my aim. But when we got to Form 2, like you say, you know, these people who just said, this is so hard, this is so difficult. So I had the same experience. And I had the older students saying, oh, this is so difficult, because then you'll definitely consult. Which subjects do you choose? Yeah. What do you do?
How do you pick this?
Exactly. So it was the same experience for me. So unfortunately, I dropped physics. Then I proceeded, finished my high school, joined University of Nairobi. But as fate will have it, it still drew me back to physics and to all these STEM subjects, now as a grown-up. So I found myself going back, learning how to code, learning how to do all these things, learning how motors work. And
so what course exactly did you study when you were in campus? So
in campus, University of Nairobi, I pursued a double major in sociology and communication.
Okay.
Then thereafter, I worked with different organizations, AMREF, a Safaricom affiliate company known as JUP, and then I went to a consulting company before joining the Lego group in Kenya in 2015. So when they left, I sort of just transitioned into that. And good thing, or lucky for me, I had gone through, you know, the process, the systematic learning process and the robotics concept in Denmark. So it sort of opened my eyes and I was like, okay. So we are
So
told
you
not
went
do
to
this.
Denmark and that is where you got this experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went to Denmark for studies, especially on robotics.
Okay.
And the learning methodology, so how to implement it in classrooms, how to ensure that students are engaged in it, how to demystify the STEM factor in all this, because people perceive it as very difficult. So after that, I just decided to transition with it and registered STEMprix as a company, and here we are now.
Okay. And then what would you say is STEM in Denmark? How has it been embraced among the ladies?
So good thing for Denmark is that the education is sort of government-based. So most schools are government-regulated. And they have some of the best schools.
I know they're the happiest people in the world, the Danes.
Yes, yeah. So they have their schools regulated by the government. So almost all of them take their kids to the government schools, although they have few private schools, but more affiliate to the government schools than even the private schools. So that's the situation in Denmark. In Kenya, it's a blend. For those that can afford the private schools, will most likely opt for the private schools, especially at lower level.
Right.
But few of them will go to government schools at primary level. So it's different, and I think we'll get there at some point. Now that we have CBC, I think the government is really trying to have the teachers trained, and they're very busy. The TSC is very busy training teachers, building their capacity, so we can have, you know, the best and more encouragement to our children. So the public schools become as competitive as private schools are.
Right, and we'll shortly be getting into the CBC. So let's talk about now how you officially now launched this in the country. So what did it take?
So like I say, I just continued, or rather transitioned with the schools, because our biggest clients were the international schools. They were the fastest to pick the concept up, and we had even launched a robotics competition. So we had more international schools pursuing it and taking it up. So we sort of continued more with the international schools and the top private schools. But then looking back, we said, okay, for us to be sustainable, we have to go back to the basics, and the basics are the local schools. So we tried working with the government entities. So Semester is one of them that is really promoting STEM. The main core mandate is to train STEM teachers. So they're empowering STEM teachers to implement STEM activities, and they embrace the entire STEM culture among the STEM schools. So they bought 102 of these robots and gave them to the schools. And then we've been working with the schools and trying to sort of just push on the agenda that students can still use it in classroom, because it has a curriculum that totally blends in with what they're teaching, to help facilitate the STEM culture in our schools as well. Okay,
so using robotics, then at what level does it begin?
From as low as 4 years, students can start to think through it, to put things together, to test how they work. So robotics starts at a very early age.
Okay, and it goes all the way to...
All the way to the university.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, and how exactly is it inculcated in learning? Is it a subject on its own? Does it aid in doing an assignment? How exactly does it work?
So STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. In our schools, I think biology is sort of a subject on its own, chemistry is a subject on its own. So with robotics, it sort of embraces both. So it brings on the ICT aspect as well. And now I think we're implementing more of that in CBC, where students are encouraged to code and to create programs and to create websites, as well as everything that they're doing is project-based.
Right.
So it could be finding a solution to water problem. So that's more of a social problem, and students will still use robotics to help find that out. So what happens in robotics is there's the design element. So you have to design your problem, and you have to design your solution as well. So you have to think through what the problem has been presented to you, and what is this solution that can help us sort of work through this. And then they have to put it together. So that's the assembly. You have to, put it together, and then you have to test it. So mainly testing happens when you're able to control your robot. So it's autonomous. So you control it through coding. Coding is basically telling the robot what to do. So I want you to help me carry a glass from point A to point B.
Okay.
So you need to tell the robot through code. It's like walking. When I have to give you an instruction on, I want you to make 3 steps to get to where I am, it's the same way robots work.
Okay, and I believe we'll be just learning how to do that right now, because I believe there's a need for this, because changing the perception then, if people see how it's done, then they could change how they think, they could change the mindset and maybe embrace this more. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so robotics is actually being embraced all over the world currently. So it's not something that is just for a show or for schools only, because when you look at our lifestyle today, we have Molly the robot. There's a robot that is a chef that can cook, prepare food. We also have robots that can serve, like in China, robot that can serve you, tell you welcome and all that. So robotics is now more practical than ever before. And I think it's a field that still has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of solutions that can still come up that will help our generation to come.
Right. So which country or which part of the world would you say the robotics have been inculcated into learning successfully?
Well, there are several countries. China is one of them. US is also another country that is really embracing robotics, whether in school or at a high level, where companies are coming up with robots and testing them and seeing how they can make our life easier. Surgical robots, car assembly robots. So there are several countries that are now embracing robotics. Yeah.
And is it then expensive for a school now to embrace robotics as part of learning?
So unfortunately for this kind of robot, it's slightly costly, but there are so many robots that are coming up that are cost friendly, and they're also programming languages that are free. Right. Yes, that students, teachers, parents can log on and just train and learn for free. So there's a lot of information out there. It's just finding a balance and finding what works for you and what doesn't, and where maybe to begin.
Okay, and now let's talk about the CBC, competency-based curriculum, which is again largely practical. There's a lot that young learners get to do that involves even their parents as well. So would you say that the CBC would go more in line with the robotics in helping children learn? Yeah,
actually CBC is it's a good curriculum. And in my opinion, it will shape our future in ways that we've never imagined if well implemented. CBC encourages problem solving, it encourages confidence. You see students being given assignments and they have to present and they have to make things and they have to test them. So it's not more focused on the cramming, because there's a difference where the students are able to make things and test them and see how they're working and talk about it, as opposed to reading about it and mastering what you've read, because that's what's going to be examined. But when we turn that around and we give more focus to the learner, and that's what CBC is doing. So it's the focus is more on the learner.
Right.
And the teacher is more of a facilitator and helps out the student get the best out of what they can. I think it's a good curriculum, and
right.
it's the right direction we're taking.
Right, and I don't know what we need now to get started over here, just to see how they're going to work. But before we sort that very shortly, then I'd like to bring your attention into trying to inculcate this in learning. We already have the CBC that has been deemed by very many parents to be very costly. So then where would STEM tricks then target? Is it only the high-end schools and not the public, which holds the majority of learners in the country?
So, yeah, parents argue, well, not all parents. Some parents argue that CBC is expensive and they're told to bring in a chicken or money, that the students need to go shopping in their school canteen, and they have to make a few things in the house that parents don't really understand. But I think it's also cheap, in my opinion, depending on how we look at it. Because the essence of CBC is to use localized materials.
Right.
What we have available that is affordable, free, or recyclable. So something that we're not using anymore that we can, recycle to make something out of it. So for example, the parents are told to make a car. You don't have to go to the supermarket to buy a car. You can use an empty bottle, have some bottle tops,
Right.
And it's not meant for the parents to do the work. I think we're also getting it twisted a bit. It's for the child to do it, but with the supervision of the parents.
Okay.
So they are told what to do and how to do it in school, but then they have to do it at home. And the parents have to see the outcome. And then the children will present it in school the next day. Maybe we're just not understanding the concept yet, but I think the government is also working very hard to ensure that the parents and the teachers get the concept right.
And they're involved as well with
yes,
that task force.
which is a good thing.
Okay, so we do have to take a very short break, but we'll be back and just to see how exactly these robotics work. And of course, I'll be put to task. I don't know how I'm going to perform, so don't go too far.
Sienda nayo huko ndani, unaacha hapo kwa luggage ndio uingie.
Niwache kwa luggage namna gani nataka kutumia huko ndani? Nimekuja na hii gani ndio inatumika? Hii paketi ama hii kuchota? Kwani serious hii? Bwana wacheni mchezo bwana. Nini?
Karibu customer. Hizi bidhaa unaziacha pale kwenye luggage ndipo sasa ufanye shopping kwa supermarket yetu. Kuchota ni kufanya shopping pekee.
Ni kufanya shopping.
Raundi hii chota mapema na Hetia Supermarket ndio best. Kwa mara nyingine tena Hetia Supermarket inakuletea chota na Hetia Supermarket. Kushiriki shindano la chota ni rahisi. Ingia tu Hetia Supermarket iliyo karibu nawe Kitale, Bungoma, Eldoret, Kakamega, Kisumu, Busia, Naivasha, Limuru, Nairobi, Thika, Nyeri, Meru, Chuka na Maua. Nunua bidhaa ya shilingi 600 na zaidi na utapewa raffle ticket. Jaza vizuri na utumbukize kwa sanduku iliyo mlangoni. Utakuwa umeingia kwa draw ya kujishindia zawadi kama gari 7 aina Daihatsu Mira, pikipiki 21 aina ya TVS, 1130 school fees, TVS, microwaves, shopping vouchers na vingine vingi.
Bas, ni huku. Saidia mimi.
Chota imethaminiwa na Mika Appliances, washing powder, K-Power Glucose, Triclovers Armis, Pwani Oil Fresh Fried Diva Sour, Ken Afric, Cabernet Water, Chandania Velvets and Rosy Tissue Toilex, Masters Cooking Oil, unga ya dola, Cool Seed Juice, Unilever Vaseline Geisha Omo na Mount Kenya Milk. Shindano hili limeidhinishwa na BCLB permit number 002816. Sheria na masharti kutumika.
Kuchota na Hetia Supermarket, na hii motokaa gari smart kabisa inaweza kuwa yako. Unangoja nini? Ingia, fanya shopping yako Hetia Supermarket, kuchota na hii gari, hii motokaa inaweza kuwa yako. Mtu anaweza pesa kwa buti.
Hetia Supermarket, a world of choice.
Beautiful, wonderful, glorious. We are having the show that we share entitled Shepherd Voice.
I'm waiting for you to get me to Kenya. That's what I'm waiting
for you.
God is the source of every blessings that flow into your life.
And I know that God is going to bless you and to do a new thing.
Pray, 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 pray.
And right about now, we need to do it practically just to see how the robotics are handled. Christine Ocheng is here with me. She is the founder of STEM Tricks. And Christine, let's begin right now. So what do I need to do? Because I'm on the spot here. I can't look bad.
Yeah, so you're actually holding a very simple robotic tool that you can use to make absolutely anything. So you have a motor and then you have a smart hub. So the smart hub is what carries the battery or the power.
Right.
And the motor is what will make any model that you make run. So with that you can change that into anything. But for the first assignment, we're going to make a fan, a cooling fan.
A cooling fan?
Yes.
Okay. So how do we get started then?
Yeah, so we are going to put a few pieces together.
Okay.
And we're going to test it through a small program, a drag and drop program, to see how it works.
Okay.
So to begin, we're going to pick a few pieces from the box.
Okay, just carefully.
Okay. So let me just go.
So
back
then that's what shows us the project that we're going to be undertaking.
Yes.
Okay.
So let me just go back a bit.
So this is the motor.
Yeah.
And what did you call this?
A smart hub.
A smart hub.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick a blue piece from that box.
A blue piece?
Yes. Then you put it right on top of the smart hub.
Like that?
Then a yellow one.
A yellow one. On top of the
on
blue?
top of the blue. And then another blue one.
Okay.
And then lastly, you're going to have the motor on top of all that.
This is the motor?
That's the motor, yes.
Okay.
Good. And then you're going to pick a blue piece from there, a green one.
A green piece?
And then we're going to put it together with the white one.
Okay.
Yeah, like to make a cross or a star. Yeah, you just have to press it a little harder.
A little harder. Okay, is this where I'm feeling the ground?
Yeah, I think you've done it right. And then we're just going to put it inside of that motor. Yeah, on the black part here.
Oh, okay, okay.
So that's the connector.
So you said you're making a fan. Gosh, now I don't know where this is gonna.
Yes, you have it right.
Okay.
And then, yeah, you have your good job.
Okay. So actually, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So this is...
That's a small cooling fan.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to connect it via Bluetooth. So you're going to press the green button.
There's a green button here?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm also pressing here.
On.
There, I have it. So we're waiting for the thumbs up.
So it is connecting through.
Yeah. So did the color change? No. So we try it again, press again.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it's connected, it will just show us that it's connected.
Okay.
So now it shows me that it's connected.
Okay.
And on your part, you should see a different light, most likely blue.
Yes, yes, there's a blue light.
Yeah. And then, so here is where we have a simple drag and drop program. So this yellow button shows play.
Okay.
And then we have our motor. So we can give our motor power. So let's say we want it to move. Then I'm just going to give it a power of 8 and tell it the direction. And then there you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And we just made ourselves a fan.
Yes.
Okay. So that's how it works. So for learners, so you've said that this is at the level of
this is primary level.
Primary level.
Yes.
Okay. So for students, once they go in and just try to use this robotics in learning, then there is an instructor who instructs them like you have just done right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what are the possibilities? What more projects then can be created from even the robotics that we have right here, right now?
So the limit is our creativity.
Okay.
So there's no limit to what we can do with these gadgets. So the limit is our ability to think beyond imagination.
Okay.
So we can build absolutely anything that we want to build.
Okay, so and how do we then switch it off?
So I can,
press?
yeah, because it's programming.
Okay.
The same way you can turn it on and it's connected here, you can still just switch it off by clicking the red button.
Okay, so and for now, how long depends on how do you rate the performance? Because like I have passed my first project then, but how do you rate my performance? Is time a factor as well?
It's yes and no. So time is a factor because a classroom is normally limited to between 45 to 1 hour. So the project that the kids are doing has to be something that they're able to do within that time frame. But then there has to be preparation before. So they have to understand what exactly they're doing, what they're building, why they're building it, how it's work. So the working is when you have to test it through code. So that's pretty easy. And then the last part is you have to think through what exactly did you make? Did it work the way you expected it to work or the way you were commissioned that it should work? What else can you do? So now we can maybe challenge you to ask you, would you like to change your code? How would your code look like? Meaning, how will your robot move like? Your fan, sorry. How would you modify the fan? Would you have some wheels so that it's moving while it's still propelling?
Okay, so it challenges creativity as well.
Yes.
So then this involves the whole STEM basically.
Yes.
Because there's science to it, then there's technology to it, there's engineering to it, there's mathematics as well.
Yeah.
Okay, and then for this, what is the future?
So the future is in finding solutions to our problems. Currently we have a lot of things going on. We have drought, we have climate change, we're in need of energy, the fuel cost is on the rise. So we have a lot of possibilities in terms of even businesses or solutions to come up with. Because for us to have a more sustainable generation, then we need to find problems to our solutions today.
Okay, and lastly, then how has this been embraced by especially the girl child?
So the girls love it. And I think they love it because they're able to make something and they can see it work. And it also gives them the leeway to be creative with it, to make it the way they want it to be. And that's where the creativity comes in, where you're not sort of tied to, you're following the steps.
Okay.
You're shown how to do it, and then you're given the leeway to modify it, to change it, to make it better, to make it how you want it to be, without anyone sort of limiting you or criticizing, saying that, oh, this should look this way. No, 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 it's your creative, it's your space. And as long as it works the way you want it to work, and it's meeting the purpose as to why you want it to look that way, then it's good. It's all good.
And thank you so much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you.
That is Christine Ochieng, who is the founder of STEM Tricks. And now that I passed my first project, I don't know if I'm going to get a STEM Tricks badge. Okay. And we thank you for being part of this conversation as well. The hashtag is Morning Drift. And I am Nancy Lima. Today on the conversation, we have been talking about the STEM, which is the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And of course, for the girl child and the uptick of the same, and how more needs to be done for girls to be involved in the sciences. For now, I will leave you, but I will hand you over to Simba, who's going to come in and talk Marta's business. Goodbye for now.